Welcome to Brand Specified, the only podcast that is focused on helping brands in the built environment connect with specifiers and grow awareness. Today, we are really excited to welcome Tiffany Rafii, one of the founders of UpSpringPR, to the show. Tiffany works solely in the built environment and is our go-to person for PR. I think most manufacturers and actually most folks in this world don't value PR as much as they should, and I don't think they really understand how to use PR. So Tiffany, we are here to really get a glimpse into your world and understand how our listeners can use PR to grow their businesses. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, my pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
Yay. So let's talk a little bit about the three kind of categories you serve.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So as you mentioned, we are entirely focused on the built environment, which I think can mean a lot of different things. We represent interior design firms, architecture firms, real estate companies and developers. We work with a lot of prop tech companies who are shaping the way the built environment is being not only interacted with, but created. And then last but certainly not least, we represent product manufacturers. So really helping product companies, whether they be tile, wood flooring, mesh wire, and super technical materials all the way through to beautiful lighting and B2C products as well. Help them sort of build awareness and generate full level and multi-layered communications plans to hit their target markets.
Wonderful. So tell us a little bit about, how do folks really use PR to grow sales? And I guess when I ask that, the other thing I kind of want to understand is what exactly is PR? I mean, typically we think of it as placement in a magazine. Tell us about different types of PR and how folks can leverage that to grow sales.
We offer a ton of services under our PR umbrella. So everything from media relations, which as you mentioned is what people generally have in mind when they think of PR, all the way through to award submissions, speaking opportunities, assistance at trade shows, leveraging presence at those trade shows, building business development strategies that fall in line with how they are marketing to and interacting and leveraging those connections at those trade shows, all the way through to any copywriting, blog writing, influencer relations, is a large part of that as well. So there are tons of functions that live under the PR umbrella. And before you can figure out how any and which one of these might be a fit for you to utilize in growing sales, it's important to do an audit. When our clients come to us, we run a due diligence with them where we really sit down and not only want to understand the assets that we have access to, but it's far more than that. Most importantly, we want to identify their business development strategies. How are those internal teams structured? How is their sales team structured? What does growth mean to them? For some of our clients, it's expanding into new market sectors. For other clients, growth is selling larger volume to fewer customers and sort of being more discerning and really focused in on a smaller group of people that they're servicing really, really well. And then for others, it's geographic expansion, right? We're doing really well in New York and California, but we feel like we should be doing really well in Florida, and we're not. Why is that? How can we change that? So really understanding the makeup and the internal structure of the company, how they operate from a sales perspective, what their business development goals and objectives look like. We can then identify which services and how those services need to be implemented in order to identify the most strategic ways in order to fuel that growth and those sales. So I think it's incredibly important to identify and do that audit. It's actually a really great discovery to sort of really bring out things you might not even know that you know and that you want for the growth of the company. And then, of course, using any of the services that I had mentioned to develop credibility, boost SEO, and create content to leverage for marketing purposes as well.
Yeah, this is one of the things that we love when we have a client that we can work together with you guys to really leverage both of our areas of expertise and really bring them some amazing results. So can PR actually nurture leads?
Absolutely. PR can generate them, but it can also help to provide credibility in order to bring them home. We have clients, for example, who know, let's say on the firm side, on the architecture side, for example, that they want to be doing healthcare and that there are XYZ number of hospitals in XYZ city that are going to be either developed or renovated. So we will get ahead of it and we will ensure that we have coverage in said area so that when the time comes and the RFP is released and they're submitting to that RFP, they have all of this content and asset to really help position them as the appropriate choice for that RFP win. So really understanding what leads might look like, anticipating them, and then even for those that might come up organically that you're unaware of, people are going to Google you, you are going to be looked into. So really ensuring that your online profile and word of mouth is there in order to support and help you sort of bring home that win.
So that's really interesting. I don't think that most people think about that in terms of nurturing leads, but that makes a lot of sense. We all go online and, look someone up, and whether that's a company or a product, and seeing those hits and those connections to media really reinforces credibility. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, one other thing to sort of layer on is, I had a business development call myself yesterday where the person had said someone had referred us. They had, obviously looked into us and then had gone ahead and done additional research, and every path that they had gone down led them back to us. Right. So it's just these repeated introductions and really sort of solidifying the fact that the fit is there, regardless of how the introduction was made, can really help to make a case for working with that company.
I think that in our industry, especially if you focus on the digital experience, most people are 70% down the sales funnel before they're ever going to reach out. And that's like a perfect demonstration of what you just talked about in that new business call. And I think that is something that is so important to realize, that all of these conversations, all of this research eventually came to you. And by then that company had already identified that they were the right fit for you, as well as you were the right fit for them. I think COVID brought a lot of changes, took a lot of strategy and fortitude for companies to really figure out how to make the best out of that situation. And some companies really thrived and others became very inventive on how they approached the market. And you guys fall into that latter category with the building the design queue. So can we talk a little bit about that? Like, why did you build this tool? What is it exactly? And how do your clients use it?
Absolutely. So the design queue is our COVID baby. We really we've always been super focused on viewing PR through a business development lens. That has been our priority. It is the entire way that we have shaped our business. And through interaction with all of our product manufacturers and truly understanding every single one of them having sort of a different way of approaching their sales. Some have internal sales reps, some have external sales rep functions. Others are e-commerce, some are not. Some have showrooms, some don't. And no matter what the formula, there has always been a huge challenge for being able to curate, maintain, and clean lists of potential clients and customers, as well as being able to update and ensure that they remain current. So I'm sure all of you who are listening in have faced this problem at one point or another, and you would probably agree. Every client that comes to us will say, "Oh, we have a list of 10,000 people, and we don't even know who's on there. It's not segmented. We're sending out marketing messages and even leveraging the PR and press you're giving us, and we're just sending it out to that whole list. Some messaging might not be appropriate for that whole list. There might be potential clients that you are alienating, for example, by sending certain content to them on that list." So what we set out to do was to build a database of our A&D contacts. So it's architects, designers, engineers, contractors. We're building out real estate developers, and continuing to grow. We've got over 140,000 contacts on the database already. And the whole idea is that you'll be able to log in and generate lists. So let's say you are looking to support a showroom in Nashville. You'll be able to go into the list, identify all the designers and architects that might be suitable for your product in that area, generate the list, export it, and then use it in every sort of digital marketing capacity that you might require in process to help support that showroom. Or if you are looking to support your reps and want to sort of export every designer who might be a fit for them at certain firms that are on their list, for example, or in their geographic region. They might have 3 or 4 designers they work with regularly. You'll be able to sort of help them expand that outreach and really just be smarter and more focused on who they're reaching out to. We run a bounce software on the back of the program, so we really ensure, and the bounce software runs monthly, ensure that any movement that occurs, any bounces that occur, our research team receives that information and then is able to completely sort of update it, and then you will be notified and flagged that update has occurred. So really just giving you a place for your lists to live so that you can segment them and be really smart about outreach every time you want to send out a correspondence, anytime you want to support a rep base, or even just your internal sales functions, building lookalike audiences for social, and just making sure that you're working smarter, not harder. And we're sort of doing that organization and that cleaning up those contacts for you.
I think the design queue coming from you is really important because it has its origin deep within the market, not being a purchase list. Quite often we are purchasing lists on behalf of our clients. And while the list builders may be very solid in what they do, this is a very nuanced market. And it is different from other markets because of each of the players having all collaborating in one sale or culminating in one sale, all have very different issues. And being able to create campaigns that are so highly targeted and personal is really the best way to leverage the design queue, I believe. Let's talk about influencers. How do you work with influencers, and what does this bring to, what are the benefits to your clients?
I think it's no secret that the media landscape is changing. It has been for a while, and influencers are a really big part of why that media landscape has been changing, and for a really great reason. We find them to be an incredibly valuable tool in helping to build social following, widening customer base, and I'm sure all of you will agree, we can always use more content. So generating new content to be used. Influencers have a very large impact on creating and solidifying a brand identity and leveraging any opportunities and relationships that they may have on their streams in order to really push forward any sort of launch agenda or influence any sort of purchase. On the influencer side, it is incredibly important to start off identifying what type of budget you'd like to put forward for influencers. We have clients who are entirely focused on trade only and don't put dollars behind influencers. Others do a hybrid. Some are really focused on putting a larger spend there. We then work with our clients in order to generate a full plan. There are a lot of tools available on the market now that help you ensure that an influencer is worthwhile. Really identifying and taking a look at what their customer base might look like, or sort of what their user base might look like. And from there, we can generate a sort of a targeted list of influencers, round out exactly what we want to offer to who, generate the contracts, negotiate them on behalf of our clients in order to make sure we're getting the most content and leveraging as much possible out of that trade. And then from there, seeing that coverage through. And then, of course, ensuring that we have access to all assets generated for use in both PR and marketing. Influencers have been a huge asset to our clients, and many mistakenly think that they cannot be leveraged for B2B products, and they absolutely can.
I definitely think it is a world that a lot of folks have kind of waited on the sideline to see if it's really going to be effective. but it definitely is. What are some of the biggest mistakes companies make when it comes to PR? Because to be honest with you, I feel like a lot of times it's almost a cultural mindset. Like we believe in the power of PR and we get the same thing. We either believe in marketing or we don't. And I think that when you start working with a PR company, you can make the best of it or you can make it probably not as effective. Same thing in our world. Either you're committed and you're all in, or you're kind of holding back and maybe not being able to leverage the best results. So, what are the biggest mistakes that companies make when it comes to PR?
Anytime we chat with a potential new client, they fall in one of two categories. It's either they've never had a PR firm before or they've had a really bad experience. It's one or the other. Otherwise, they're not having a conversation with me, right? No matter what, you have to mitigate risk. And I think the most important thing on the PR side is for us to ensure that we're cultivating that trust and confidence very early on. But the client has to be willing to trust the process a bit also. The biggest mistake is to not fully integrate with your PR firm and not be responsive. So on the side of fully integrating, it is incredibly important that you allow access for your PR firm to your sales team, to your BD team, to your internal, external marketing team. That holistic view of how things are operating and is the only way to generate a cohesive message. We have experienced clients who don't provide us that access. Do we still do right by them? Yes, absolutely. Will we still generate press for them, award submissions, speaking opportunities, etc.? Yes, absolutely. The problem is that you just won't get as much out of that PR firm as you could be. The message will not be as consistent as it could be. So the more access you give, the better it'll go. And then, of course, answering those emails in a timely manner. New opportunities come through. Reporters are on deadline. We need to ensure that our clients are being responsive and giving us the attention that we need in order to bring those opportunities to fruition as quickly as possible. We do our part based off of the content that we have to draft first rounds of things and ensure that we're pushing the process along as far as we can. But that responsiveness is a huge, huge, huge part of it as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when companies bring on agencies of any kind or partners, that it may not be clear just how much time that's going to take on their end to be able to really get the most of it. So, Tiffany, tell me how Upspring started and why you're focused in this environment.
Unfortunately, I don't have the best story. It's a bit of a happy accident how we ended up in design, but I can walk you through it. So Sarah, my business partner, and I actually started the company when we were seniors in college. We spent about a year and a half doing PR for pretty much anyone who would hire us to do PR for anything. And then at the time, design just was not a mainstream conversation, not the conversation that it has become, which, has been really incredible to witness and to be part of. But about a year and a half in, we knew, like any good business, we needed to specialize in order to be successful. We took a pulse on the landscape, and we saw that there really weren't many PR firms that specialize in this industry, and those that existed were quite small. And so we set out to really focus in on design, learn about it, see if it might be a fit for us. We hired an editor from Hospitality Design Magazine who joined our team at the time, and she taught us the ropes. We started off working with firms, mostly B2B, and then moved into product manufacturers. And now, a little over 13 years later, we are over 30 employees and fully, entirely dedicated to the space. It has been a wild ride, but we really, truly enjoy it, and I really couldn't imagine being in any other industry. It is such a great combination of creative and strategic. There is really no ego in the space, and it is refreshing and quite enjoyable to have a hand in growing these companies.
Yeah, that's really ambitious of you guys to start this in college. It's quite incredible. Thank you so much for being on the show today. And just if anybody's interested, can you give us your URL?
Sure. It's just UpSpringPR. We'd love to hear from you.
Great. And I would absolutely encourage any of our listeners to reach out directly to Tiffany if you have any PR needs. And this has just been incredible. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Brand Specified. If you have any topics you'd like covered, please feel free to reach out to hello@epiphany-studio.com. Let us know what you'd like us to cover in the future, or if there's anyone you think would make a great guest, please reach out as well. Thank you.